Welcome to This Day Live, the Sunday talk show where we discuss all things political, bringing you the top stories locally, nationally, and from around the world. I'm Reuben, Abati, and This Day Live begins now. I'd like to welcome today's panelists. We have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Director General, Bola Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies, and Yemi Adamolekun, Executive Director, Enough is Enough. You're welcome. Good to see you again. Now let's start with International Women's Day. On Thursday, March 8th, worldwide, the International Women's Day was marked, a day for the celebration of women's social, political, and cultural achievements from the past and the present, while pushing for progress for future generations. This year's theme is Press for Progress, where that was the hashtag. The theme is actually Time is Now, Rural and Urban Activists Transforming Women's Lives. Now, more than ever, there is a strong call to action to press forward and progress gender parity, motivating and uniting friends, colleagues, and all communities to think, act, and be gender inclusive. With the World Economic Forum's 2017 Global Gender Gap Report findings telling us that gender parity is over 200 years away. What are our thoughts on the question of female equality and the female equality movement since 1909, up to 1911, up to when 100 years of International Women's Day was celebrated in 2011, and the whole history that has developed around it. And so many themes that have been considered: gender and equality, HIV/AIDS and women, women for progress. How have women fared since the Russians first got suffrage, the right to vote in 1917 after the October Revolution? I'll start with you.
Yeah, I can see. You were looking at me as you were talking.
Yes.
I think for me, in 2018, I'd focus on two things that I think sort of show where we still are and highlight those issues. So you have the Me Too movement that started in the US and
first in Russia, and then it went around the world. It was from the Second International in Denmark in 1910.
No, I was just talking about even the recent Me Too movement, the hashtag.
Oh, okay.
The Me Too, not the global, the Me Too movement currently. That's why I said 2018, tied to Women's Day. The Me Too movement in the last 2 months around just women and stories that have been suppressed for many years. Women finding their voice, showing harassment in the workplace, people who are professionals, and not having the space to sort of draw the line or say when they are being harassed for fear of not being listened to or fear of being vilified. And the stories that have come out from that, from the US, even all the way up to countries as unlikely as India, where people don't expect it. In Nigeria, hasn't caught up, but another media platform did a story of 5 Nigerian women who were sharing their own Me Too stories. My friends and I actually joke about it, that if Nigerian women started talking about their Me Too stories, it would be quite a can of worms, because we also layer culture on top of it. Not just the disempowering of women, but also, to some degree, a culture that almost makes that acceptable, that you don't even talk about it. That's on one side. And then on another side is Nigeria's issue of girl-child education. The Dapchi girls being a reference point, 110 of them still missing. But if we're now breeding an environment where parents, first of all, education in the northern part of the country is quite far behind the rest of Nigeria. You then have a situation we've created from the Chibok abduction in 2014 to the Dapchi one this year, where parents are no longer willing to send their children to school. Now, if you have an uneducated mother, the chances are that her children will not get any education. What kind of future does that child have in the 21st century? And for me, so those sort of two landmarks in Nigeria and in the US really show that, yes, there's been 100 years in the history you try to paint, but there's still quite a lot of work, quite a lot of work to be done.
Quite correct. Prof, I mean, International Women's Day was on March 8th, and today is Mother's Day.
Yes.
March 8th is almost standard for International Women's Day, but different countries celebrate Mothering Sunday on different days. But will you say women have fared well over the years? From the right to vote to issues of equality, to sexual discrimination, to adolescent sexuality, to rape, you know, a whole basket of issues that women all over the world have had to deal with.
I will argue that women are not just simply well-fed, they are overfed in many ramifications.
You just said overfed, right? Did I hear you right?
Yes, I did. You see, my problem is a little bit different from the way you are looking at it. In the United Kingdom, for instance, this 2018 celebration marks 100 years of the time women were allowed to vote in the parliament. 100 years. So it is worth celebrating. But in the past 100 years there, please, women in England, in the United Kingdom as a whole, right, have been exposed to new rights, many rights, right? They have their rights. It is no longer that they are, you know, not well catered to and well catered for. They have been doing very well. They've been taking active parts in areas hitherto considered reserved for men. Please go back to Beijing Conference 2005. Look at the genesis. Look at the issues discussed. The women have moved further. In fact, I agreed in total with your submissions. Your submission is valid to the extent that the international environment favored that. The critical issue, and that's where I want to draw particular attention. The issue is gender equality. What is gender, first of all? The French school of thought has come out with a definition that, look, contrary to the universalized conception of gender, male and female, the French have added a third gender. And they are considering the priests, all right? The priests, the servants of God, particularly the Catholic priests, as a special gender. Now, we are talking about gender equality. Where should the equality begin from? Particularly
I think on this question, we're dealing with the entire province of human rights. You know, and if you look at the Nigerian situation, as she was trying to do, we still have very serious issues. I mean, 12 states in Nigeria tried to pass the Child Rights Act, the Child Rights Bill, you know, into law. But we still have issues with, you know, the right of the girl child to education, the right of the girl child, you know, to make her own sexual or relationship choices. I mean, in Nigeria, you know, there was a bill that, you know, the senator from Ekiti State, Senator Olujimi, tried to, the gender equality bill. It was shut down by persons in the Nigerian National Assembly who were saying that, look, they have a right to marry underage girls because it's a matter of culture and religion for them.
And amending our constitution to allow child marriage.
I'm not disagreeing with all those points. You see, I'm saying the epicentral issue, you know, the critical issue around which all the other issues we are talking about should be discussed. Which is equality. All right? Women equality.
Okay.
All right?
But there are many phrases in the discourse. Empowerment, inequities, equality, rights, and all that.
When you ask the question, what will be the future? How far have they been able to go? What is likely to be the prospects? My answer is to say, well, these human rights we are talking about, if you look at it critically from the biblical perspective, those who subscribe to the religious conception of right now will look at the relationship between a husband and a wife. The husband is...
Being a woman doesn't make you a wife.
No.
I mean, so let's be... No. By the time you are saying...
Please, we even have man-to-man marriage. But that one is still human rights.
No, I'm just saying that the definition of a woman and a woman's right shouldn't be in the context of marriage. That's all I was trying to point out.
No, I agree with that one. I'm saying, look, what does the Bible say?
Hey,
the Bible says the man, all right, should love the wife. The wife should
so what does that have to do with
respect
women's rights?
That shows that the Bible already does not provide any basis for equality between the man and the woman.
So is everybody a Christian?
No. That is one aspect of faith. Everybody is not a Christian.
Yeah.
But the Christians, for instance, if you now sit down and you are talking about women equality, women gender equality, all those things, I'm saying it wouldn't apply.
It shouldn't apply to who? To Christians?
No, those people who believe in the Bible.
Yes, so gender equality shouldn't apply to Christians.
Well,
because I'm sure some Christians disagree. Some Christians will disagree with you.
There's no way
let me assist you because
there's no way a woman can claim equality with the husband. It's not possible.
So, and that goes back to my fundamental point.
Yes.
Being a woman doesn't make you a wife. So if on that premise, because the context we are drawing is in the context of a marriage, in a Christian marriage, what does that have to do with a woman's rights to expect equal pay for equal work in a commercial?
And to be respected as a human being.
Exactly, in a commercial workplace.
You are raising the fundamental difference between a mother and a woman. Now, when you work, all right, like for instance, in Scotland, let me say in the United Kingdom right now, there's a movement, there are calls that, look, people in Ireland, Northern Ireland, to have the right to abort locally rather than going to England. It has been there.
Anyway,
that right, I concede to you that, look, you can talk about equality at that level. Equality in terms of access to opportunities, yes. Equal pay, yes, for job done equally. All those things I don't have.
Access to education.
Access to education.
Access
yes.
to
I think what is important, in my view, is that, this year, we see Nigerians celebrating women on International Women's Day. It looks like a fresh development in Nigeria.
It's been ongoing.
Well, it's growing.
It's growing,
There is a greater awareness in this regard. And, it's important that in a society like ours, we get to hear the voice of the other half of a society, particularly with women representing almost about 50% of the Nigerian
women
population.
Hold up half the world.
And then today is Mother's Day. Mother's Day started by Anna Jarvis in honor of her mother, Anne Jarvis. And today is also a day of sentiment. I've seen a lot of Nigerians on Instagram celebrating their mothers and, saying that they are very grateful. And probably there are people who are exchanging flowers, violet, lily of the valley. In Italy is the yellow mimosa. But I think that, this conversation will continue as we seek to further empower women to ensure that they are more represented in public life, because Nigerian women are still not so prominent in public life, despite the achievements of the likes of, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, Kwame now Zaria, and even the contemporary ones that we have,
Kudirat
Abiola, Okonjo Iweala, Obieze Kwesili, so the glass ceiling, we hope one day would fully disappear, particularly in terms of public life, in terms of women's political participation, and for the younger generation in terms of access to education and, their adolescent sexuality issues that you have alluded to. Well, we'll move on. Again, this is also interesting. It also has to do with women. On Wednesday, here in Nigeria, a bill to amend the National Youth Service Corps Act to accommodate religious beliefs to include skirts and hijabs in the NYSC uniform as the National Youth Service Corps failed to pass its second reading at the Senate. In his contribution to the debate on the amendment, Barau Jibrin, representing the APC from Kano, argued for the amendment to stand in conformity with various religions in the country. People of this country, he said, are either Christians, Muslims, or traditionalists, and we have our values. It appears the mode of dressing of NYSC contravenes this very important aspect of our religion. The amendment is simple. We should make it in tandem with our values, culture, and religion. The bill was rejected following concerns that such amendments require altering the Constitution, which involves a longer process. Well, this is an old debate. Should young ladies who go for national service in Nigeria wear hijabs or not? Recently, the World Hijab Day was celebrated even here in Nigeria. And many Muslim rights advocates in Nigeria have been saying, look, women should be allowed to wear the hijab in banks, anywhere at all. But those who oppose the argument say that, look, you can't wear the hijab in some places because if you need to do biometric verification or your pictures need to be taken in banks as is required, then you can't say you have to wear the hijab and hide your face. But for Muslims, this has been a very topical issue. And it's as topical as it is in Nigeria, as it is even in the United Kingdom and elsewhere in the world. Prof, let me start with you. Don't let me start with Yemi this time.
Thank you. You see, the problem is not about skirts or hijab. It is a reflection, a manifestation of the competitive politics in which Christians and Muslims are engaged. The Muslims have always been arguing that priority, all right, has always been given to whatever is Christianly in the political governance of Nigeria. It has been argued in the past that, look, Saturday, Sunday, weekend, particularly Sunday, was said to be holiday, and they are now also asking for Friday, for instance, to also be made a public holiday. They've been asking for different things. Whereas, when you look at the history of Nigeria, from its genesis, the British that colonized Nigeria and Nigerians have introduced their culture, their pattern, their manner, their way of life. Nigeria only acceded to that culture at the time of independence. So it was actually not the making of any Christian or any Muslim to introduce, all these things they are complaining about. Before independence, weekends, Fridays, Saturdays had been weekends. Sunday had always been the first day of the working week and all that. Now, when this issue is being raised now, the issue is that NYSC, which is to introduce the members, the corpers, into a new way of life that will be predicated on patriotism, altruism, fostering togetherness, unity. That type of bill is much likely to achieve the contrary. There is no way. Because, for instance, the corpers are to be brought up in the way of a Boy Scout, that is, be prepared. That's their motto. They are supposed to have this style of manu military, that is, be given military training. You can't cover your ears, cover your face, etc., and say you are going to the military field to go and job. So if it is introduced, for instance, and they are supposed to do any exercise of a military nature, are you going to have that one on? I think that we should promote hijab, religion, where it will be helpful to national unity. But where it will be aimed or it will have implication for national unity and integration, please, we should not just sit down.
Let me bring in Yemi. Yemi, see, it's not just the NYSC. I was trying to say we take a broader look at it. Now, last year, December 13, 2017, a lady who graduated from the University of Illinois, who went to the law school, was prevented from being called to bar because she insisted on wearing the hijab. And again, this was a source of big argument. People are saying, look, law is a profession. There's a uniform. Precisely. And having gone through the law school, you should know, what the rules are, the rules of engagement. But the lady stood her ground, and the Council of Legal Education refused to call her to the bar, you know, and maybe she will go for the next round. But again, it will be interesting to see whether she will still insist on her faith. So is this about freedom of thought, conscience, or about, you know, institutions and the codes of practice in those institutions?
I would err on the side of the codes of practice of the institution. And as we actually discussed it on this program last year, around what, for example, what actions had she taken in the 1 year that she was in law school leading up to that. So when you sign up, it's clear. You're required, to, if I'm not mistaken, to actually wear it for certain dinners as well, which you will not be allowed to attend if you are not dressed appropriately.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you understand that when you sign up to be a lawyer in Nigeria. Now, in the year leading up to your call to bar, fully aware of what that entailed, what had you tried to do before then, beyond then making a statement? Now, post that, I haven't read anything in the press to say that she's taken any action. As you said, if she decides to do it again, would you wait again till you're called to bar to also make that statement? Now, to the NYC situation, and actually the photograph that was shown, there's actually a lady there that was wearing a hijab in the shot that was shown as part of the reel for...
If I saw another lady who was wearing a skirt.
For that.
Not a trouser.
Exactly. So I think there are certain... If I'm not mistaken from the act as it currently states, it says that as it does not prevent you from doing what the NYC sort of court is required of you. Now, wearing a hijab, as to the best of my knowledge, having also gone through NYC, I don't think will prevent you from doing what NYC requires of you. However, wearing a skirt would. So in that regard, then there needs to be clear, what are you signing up, what does NYC require, just like police. If you're signing up to be a police officer or signing up to join the army, you can't say suddenly you want to wear a skirt.
Precisely.
Because the rules of engagement or the terms of engagement would not allow you to function in a skirt. And so it then becomes very foolhardy in terms of rights or whatever. If you want to wear a skirt and a skirt is that important to you, then you have to choose. Do I want to serve my country and sign up for a course of action that would not allow me to wear a skirt and make a conscious decision of that in choosing that? Or do I want to make a point that I want to wear a skirt, of which then you become useless to what you want to do?
I think in the long run, we'll probably have to be careful about how we join religion and the state in Nigeria.
Which is a constant problem.
This has caused a lot of problems in Nigeria and probably elsewhere. And there are people, you know, Muslim rights activists in Nigeria who are saying if women are not allowed to wear hijab in hospitals, in NYSC camps, in banks, you know, it could have serious implications.
But Reuben, that's why France clearly separated the state from the religion.
I mean, somebody made the point for the Council of Legal Education last year. He said, for example, let's say you were a Shango worshipper, which you're tying something and your top is bare. Do they expect you to be able to enter a legal chamber dressed like that? So once you then, in a sense, make an exception for one, then you open a can of worms.
You recall in Osun State, when,
the current government
students were allowed to wear hijab, you know, some other people said, well, they will go to schools as masquerades, and that nobody should stop them
reflection of their
own cultural belief.
Exactly.
Anyway, it's a very delicate subject, but, you know, religion remains an important part of our people's lives. It's time now for a short break here on ThisDayLive, the Sunday talk show. But do stay tuned. When we return, we'll be talking about Senator Shehu Sani's big revelation on Nigerian senators' best-kept secret, their pay package. Don't go away.